Hello, thank you for listening to A Glimpse of the Kingdom. I am David Pendergrass. One of the great privileges I have is to help individuals get ready for marriage and to help couples in marriage, whether they're preparing for marriage, preparing the wedding and the marriage, of course, premarital counseling. I do a lot of premarital counseling. And I've done a lot of counseling with individual and couples for, I guess over 15 years now. And I get, it's a great privilege. It really is a great privilege to try to be part of the process of their healings from wounds and growth and on and on. When it comes to couples relationships versus individuals, oftentimes there are different issues that arise, but there's some similarities with individual counseling. But of course, some are quite common. And I remember several years ago, I thought, if I ever do premarital counseling again, I'm going to start doing premarital counseling where I cover issues that come up when people who are almost divorced or headed to divorce. I'm going to try to prevent those things early on. I'm pretty certain that's not a novel idea, but it was for me at the time. And so my premarital counseling now, I spend a good bit of energy on trying to help people avoid the massive landmines that I have found to be the case why a lot of people end up getting divorced. I thought I would read some statistics to you, and then what I thought about doing in this series is talking about how to have what I consider a healthy marriage. Before I do that, though, I want to just hear these statistics very briefly. These are various studies. If you don't mind, not that I'm trying to plagiarize, but versus giving you all the citations, just these are various studies I've read that talk about why people get divorced. For example, one study was done when they interviewed a bunch of divorced parents. The most endorsed reasons why they got 55% said they grew apart. 53% said not being able to talk together. And about 40% said how one spouse handled money. So not how they handled. So growing apart, not being able to talk together, and money. Another study, when they asked, just open-ended, say just give us any reason, like fill in the blank. The most common reasons were infidelity, incompatibility, and drinking or drug use. In Oklahoma, they checked reasons to common for divorce. This is a few years ago. The top one was lack of commitment, 85%. Too much conflict or arguing, 61%. And then infidelity or extramarital affairs. International studies have found that divorce can be for a lot of reasons, like marrying too young. But then listen to this: communication problems, incompatibility, spousal abuse, drug and alcohol use, religious differences, lack of getting along, lack of commitment, even childlessness. When they asked people, there's one 2015 study, why people choose to stay married, the top three reasons were giving 64% shared interest. Shared interest is why they stayed married. I can't get over shared interest. Number 2, satisfying sex. And 3, shared household chores. Now, it's amazing to me is because religious convictions was below those three. In fact, outside of Hindus, Mormons, and Muslims, most people marry across religious groups than they do marry across political parties. So you're much more likely to marry within, if you're Republican, marry Republican, Democrat, and so forth, marry a Democrat, than you are to care about religion. These statistics from a Christian worldview are, some of them I expect, some are just amazingly bizarre to me. That you would stay married. The number one reason why you would stay married is because you have shared interests and satisfying sex. And you have household chores that you share well. It's amazing. Just take out the sex. Well, you can even keep sex and just say that's why we're friends or roommates. You can have just friends with benefits or roommates with benefits. Why in the world would you get married if that's why you do that? I mean, that's crazy to me to think that shared interest alone is why you stay married. For the Christian perspective, this is very different. So what I'm going to do in these few podcasts, I'm going to do several podcasts, and I want to talk about, this is not everything there is to know about healthy marriage. There are some really good books on healthy Christian marriage, that's for sure. But what I want to do is I want to cover some things I cover in counseling sessions with people often, and I think maybe it might help you. If you're single, you might not give a rip, and I understand that, but perhaps this would help you as well one day if you do get married or if you choose to, or it might help you judge all your married friends. Look down upon them in condemnation and figure out what they're doing wrong and make you feel self-righteous and superior. And since that's my chief goal in this podcast is to help people be superior. Maybe it won't help you, but if you're single, maybe one day if you want to get married, it'll help you. Maybe you just find it intriguing. I don't know, but this will be deliberately for, that is the content will deliberately be for married couples. And that includes what I would consider to be heterosexual couples. I mean, I guess it works for same-sex couples, I guess. Not all of it won't, because one thing will be deliberately, overtly man and woman at the very end of it. But I, maybe to account to them, but as a Christian, I support the teaching of Jesus explicitly, that marriage is between a man and woman. And then secondly, this will not cover dating. Dating is not a biblical concept, though I do support Christian dating. In fact, if you do date, I recommend a book called Boundaries and Dating. Boundaries and Dating. Cloud Townsend, a Christian psychologist, therapist. And so Boundaries and Dating, you need to memorize that book. My children, I'm serious, my children will not date anybody until that book is read and studied, and I will test them on it. And oh my goodness, yeah. So anyway, I do believe that. I think you should not kiss dating goodbye and all that nonsense. I think you should date. But anyway, I don't want to talk about dating right now. I want to talk about marriage. And it seems to me that in general, there are 5 major Christian healthy beliefs and 5 healthy practices. 5 healthy beliefs, 5 healthy habits, you might call healthy practices. And I want to do the beliefs first, and I'll do the practices later. The first healthy belief number 1, is to use a little nerd talk here in Greek. It's Eros versus Agape. This is a very important point. The first healthy belief is this. Healthy Christian couples, are committed to the person, not to a feeling about the person. Healthy marriages exist when each spouse is committed to the person, not to a feeling about a person. And to emphasize that, in Greek, there's a word we don't use much these days. One we never use, and one we use sometimes. One is eros. We get the term erotic from it. Eros, of course, much more of a sensual kind of romantic love. And so that's the kind of based on feelings. And then there's a Greek word that Christians used all the time, but Greeks and Greek speakers didn't use it that often, that they could. And that was a Greek term called agape. And agape was a kind of love which is something like a selfless, sacrificial, it's not so much sacrificial as it is committed. It's a committed kind of love. So agape is a kind of love you have where you're really bonded and committed to the person. You're committed to their good. And of course, Christians, when they talk about love, this is the dominant way it's used in the Bible. In fact, eros, the romantic love, never appears. A different kind of term, phileo, which can mean friendship love, but also can mean committed. But agape has the background of being committed. This first healthy belief is very important because many people, when they get married, they're not married to the person, really. They don't want to be married to a person. They want to be married to a feeling about a person. And that's what many people think about it. It reminds me of that Jerry Maguire clip, you complete me. If you've ever seen the movie, You Complete Me, that sense of romantic, passionate kind of love. Well, that's good, but feelings of passion, of eros, love, they're based on feel-good chemicals in the brain. They are. Norepinephrine, dopamine, oxytocin. I mean, these are chemicals that help people, makes your heart race, your palms sweat. And of course, oxytocin, it's secreted by a posterior pituitary gland. I had to look that one up. Anyway, but that's the oxytocin is the chemical that is released in mothers when they're nursing. So when they're nursing a baby, oxytocin's released in the brain. It helps you feel trust. It's also the feeling that's produced during orgasm. It's a very rewarding chemical in the brain. Well, when you're in love and you're in the infatuation stage, you feel very, very good. But those are chiefly what's occurring in the brain. It doesn't mean that's all there is to it. All I'm saying is you are having a whole host of chemicals bombard you, and it feels good. And it's so good, in fact, it can be addictive, that when people want to get married, sometimes is what they really deep down, they may not know how to say it this way. They may not even say it if they knew how to say it, because it might not sound very good. But the truth is, a lot of people want to be married to those feelings. It feels so good, I want to be committed to that. And some people, you've heard it sometimes in their vows, I promise to love you. I'm committed to you as long as I love you. I cannot fathom saying something like that to a spouse. And I tell couples that. Those are wretched vows, because guess what? You will get divorced. I mean, it's going to happen. Healthy marriages are committed to each other's good first. They're committed to their passion second. But they're both important. So they're committed to agape love first. They're committed to the commitment to the person. Eros love is second. Really. When a couple's about to get divorced, I often ask them, are you at least committed to the other person's good? That's agape love. And if so, you can rebuild a healthy relationship. You can. And let me say more about this, because this is important to remember. When you're committed to the person, you're not committed just to the feeling about it. But that's important because you need to get past what the courting stage is. In the courting stage, you idealize the other person. You idealize. That is, you chiefly focus or only focus on the good or positive on the other person. And that's what makes the passion burn. It helps you bond. It's a necessary, I say necessary, usually is a necessary component of in the dating scene, as it were, of a good marriage. It helps you bond. So maybe it's not necessary, but it's awesome when it happens. That's the courting stage. You idealize. You overlook or you diminish stuff that bothers you because you're so focused on the parts you like. Another word for being idealized state of that is infatuation. You feel infatuated. And infatuation is not the same as love. Infatuation and idealization is part of the Eros kind of love, not agape love. Now, this is very, very important, because to understand, one, is that's what's happening, and it's good as much as you take it as in stride. That's what's going on. That's great. I mean, that's great. David hates passion. No, I do not. I'm going to have a whole section on passion. I'm all for passion, and I'm not a robot, and I like romance. Oh my goodness. It's just that if the healthy marriages that will last a lifetime and be healthy are marriages where you are not committed to feelings of passion for your spouse. You know going in that the infatuation stage will go away. It will leave. It will leave you. And that passion comes and goes because they are feelings, and feelings come and go. Another little footnote about this that's so important to understand is because this does occur for most people outside of arranged marriages and so forth. But in the Western world, when we don't have arranged marriages much at all, this is very important stage that happens. And one of the reasons why it's so important is because it just happens. And you need to know going into it, infatuation leaves. A lot of people get divorced because they don't realize this is the stage they're in. They thought this was love. They thought this was everything. Then they marry the person and realize, I don't feel at all 6 months into it, sometimes 6 days into it. After the honeymoon and the bills hit and the reality hits, or if I have children, he or she doesn't look nearly as sexy. I'm not nearly as passionate as I used to be. They gained some weight. What happened to my passion? Oh, I must have fallen out of love with them. That is a profoundly wrong misunderstanding of what marriage as God intends it to be. It's not a healthy Christian marriage at all. You didn't fall out of love. Your infatuation stage came to a close. That's the first major reason why I'm saying this, is because it's in a stage and it will pass. And if you're committed to infatuation or passion, then you're doomed for divorce. You're doomed. You're going to go to get divorced. There's no doubt about it. Because it's going to happen. You will not stay in this infatuation stage forever. The second reason why it's really important to understand this is because this is how almost all affairs begin. This is how infidelity occurs. You don't love the other person. You're feeling infatuated because you're idealizing the person. Well, no, I'm not. Yes, you are. That's exactly how it is. That person that you're infatuated with, that you think you're falling in love with, the person's not real. That person's being tempered by social etiquette or work etiquette. You don't see the bad. You don't. So what happens is some woman is not getting the praise or attention or the emotional connection with her husband at home. And there's a guy at work who's fairly handsome, but he's usually dressed up. He's cleaned up, good etiquette, good social hygiene. He has good social etiquette. He smells good. He acts nice. He's smiling. He might encourage her at work. Way to go, Susie! You're really good at this. And so she's so starving for it at home, or maybe she just is not starving for it, but she just likes it. She loves the male attention. There are girls like that who just love the flirt. They love the male attention. Maybe it's because their daddy didn't give them enough attention. Maybe they're just deep down inside. They want to be easy, but they want to be kind of sleep around with people. There's all kinds of motivations for why it would occur originally, but at some point, the point is she or he, I'm just using the analogy for a female, she starts finding him attractive. But what's happening is, it's not that he's just attractive. It's that in your mind, what's happening is you're going into the infatuation stage. You idealize him every time he comes around. This is very common with therapists and with pastors. It's very common in that process of therapy and passion because females see males on, let's run with that analogy, for example, because most preachers are male. But if they're going to the office, they see them, they're up there and they're dressed up and they're being polite every single Sunday. They give them maybe side hugs or hugs and they're just encouraging. And the woman just loves that. And they're not at all like their husband at home. And they do therapy work and the guy's staring her in the eyeballs and giving full attention. And what happens is the girl just starts saying, oh, these are deeper feelings. I feel deeper feelings for the person. It's infatuation. It's what you're doing is you're idealizing the person. It's not real. The person you think you're falling in love with is not even a real person. It's your picture of the person. This is exacerbated, much exacerbated more when you're not getting along with your spouse. Because then what happens is the opposite happens. While you are idealizing the person in front of you at work, or that therapist, that pastor, whomever, you are not idealizing, you are villainizing the spouse. So what happens is now you start chiefly focusing on the spouse's bad. And it increases the degree to which you idealize, see the good in that person at work. And I'll talk about this later as well. This is called splitting in psychology, and I'll talk a lot more about that, and I'll come back to this topic. You'll see I'll come back to this topic. But splitting is very unhealthy. It's common, and it's very unhealthy. Idealization is like a splitting where you choose to see only the good, and sometimes you only see the bad. And if that's what's happening to you, you might say, well, I didn't mean to, but I just fell in love. No, you didn't, dummy. No, you didn't. You became infatuated. You saw a person. You got all lovey-dovey with the positive. It released chemicals in your brain, and you thought it was more than that. Then you had an affair. And for a lot of people, they go to this point, and then they feel horrible about themselves. And what was I thinking? Why did I do that? Why would I tell you exactly what happened? Well, I just told you what happened. Even if that girl's at the bar and she looks hot and she's coming on to you and you didn't get along at home, the fact is you start going to make choices because the chemicals in your brain in that moment are so powerful. And it's especially more powerful when it's not going well at home. And the analogy everyone uses, like if you're starving, you're going to take any food someone gives you. And so it doesn't mean it's the other person at home's fault that you had the affair. It's always your fault when you have an affair. I'm saying you're in infatuation stage. Maybe the infatuation stage lasts 10 minutes at a bar and you hooked up with someone. Maybe it lasted for months and months until you finally gave in. But all I'm saying is this stuff happens. And you and I have to grow up and be adults here and realize this stuff happens and stop being a victim. Stop pretending to be a child and running from one emotional high to another emotional high to another emotional high. And that's why we get married, divorce. I don't understand. I'm so passionate. I'm so in love with him. And then just falls out of love. And I got to find someone else until I found Bobby. I didn't know what love was. I mean, I used to be in love with Timmy, but then I met Bobby and he just really swept me off my feet. Unless you're just a wild animal that can't control your impulses, listen, because this is for you. The number one healthy belief of healthy Christian marriage is you're not in love with a feeling. You're in love with a person. You're committed to a person. Well, David, what if I don't feel the passion at all? I want more of this passion. We're going to cover that later on. We will. We'll cover, and it's coming. It's coming, sister. It's coming, brother. It is. It's going to come. But at this point right now, my first point today, and only one point today, which is it is imperative for us to understand that if you're a Christian, you need a marriage commitment. You made a commitment, a covenant in marriage before God Almighty himself. Most of you did. And most of you did in front of some kind of crowd or even a courtroom. You made a covenant to God and to the other person to be committed to the person, not to a feeling about the person. So when someone says, why did you stay married? And the number one answer is because we had shared interests, you'll probably get divorced. All you have to do is stop having shared interests. What if someone says, I don't like Frisbee anymore? I don't like flipping houses anymore. I don't like playing the piano and singing all that. I'm done with that. Well, then what happens? The number one reason you were connected is gone. And that is completely arbitrary. If your second option is we like household chores, what if someone had a car wreck and they can't do household chores anymore? What if they're a paraplegic? What if they're in a wheelchair? What if they're a burn victim? And the sex is awesome until the burn victim happens. You're out, man. You are out. These are completely conditional things. And when there's any reason to be conditional, you'll get out. Marriage is tough. Not every day, not all the time. I love being married. I love it. And marriage is a great thing. But marriage has been by far the most difficult thing I've ever been through in my entire life. To really get to know a person, and a real person get to really know you, is extremely demanding. And so without healthy beliefs and healthy practices in place, it is overwhelming, which is why people don't make it. They get divorced. And I have never met a person, I've never heard of a person in my entire life who said, I got married knowing I'd get divorced. I got married hoping I'd get divorced. I got married hoping I'd had an affair, or I would change my interest, or I would fall out of love. No one does that. They get married because they're getting married forever. And what happens is all these are the reasons, and I'm trying my best now to encourage you and to beg you to please wake up. If this is not ringing home to you, please wake up. And if David, I realize all this time I've been committed to a feeling, come to think of it. No wonder I've been resenting him, resenting her. Well, then change your mindset, relinquish, surrender that to God, and say, God, David might be a quack, and I might be. I don't think I am, but if let's try it David's way. Maybe David's going on. Maybe he's onto something. Maybe I should be committed to the other person, not a feeling about the person. And maybe my marriage commitment should not be contingent upon interest level, sex appeal, or hobbies, or chores, or the color of his or her hair, or the size of their waist, and on and on. Maybe it should be more than a contingency like that. Maybe it should be based on a bedrock principle of commitment. Well, David, should we not get divorced? No, I'm going to talk about divorce too. Lay down the road, I will. Christians, there are times when Christians ought to get divorced. There are times though. David, have you not read the Bible? Do you not know Jesus said don't get divorced? Don't you know it says in Malachi that God says I hate divorce? Yes, I have read the Bible fairly thoroughly, and yes, and we'll talk about that. I think I already have a podcast on that, but we'll talk about some of that as well down the road. And yes, it is possible, and you should, and so forth at some time. But that is absolute dire emergency time. Absolute dire, horrible emergency time divorce. Most people get divorced when they didn't get that point. Most marriages do not end because of some dire situation. They ended because, like all the studies I started out the podcast with, which is they lost similar interests. They didn't communicate well. They argued too much. These are not emergency situations. These are babies not getting their way. And then other times, it's much more serious, where there's serious woundedness going on. And I'm not talking about the serious situations. I'm not talking about abuse. Most people get divorced for really silly, infantile reasons. And the number one reason they get married is because they're not committed to the other person. They're committed to feelings about a person. And that's why healthy marriages don't do that. So I hope this helps. I hope this encourages you to think about that more, but also encourage you if you're doing it. Keep it up, sister and brother. If you're not, it's not too late. Don't give up and don't say, well, David, my marriage is lost and whatever. Man, I lost something. No, don't get all lost and discouraged and despondent. All I'm saying is now's the time to really start praying about that and say, God, I surrender to you. Any of these false expectations about what my covenant with my spouse is, I want to be committed to my spouse's good more than I want to be committed about feelings. Feelings are awesome and they're good. That's not the basis of it. That's not the foundation. Ever, ever, ever. God bless. See you next time. Well, the conversation isn't finished. You can always reach out to me on social media. Are you on Facebook? I am too. At Glimpse of the Kingdom. Glimpse of the Kingdom on Facebook. Be sure to like it and you can see updates there. Also, if you're on Twitter, check me out at Dr. D. Pendergrass, at Dr. D. Pendergrass, or at Glimpse the King, at Glimpse the King. And I try my best to respond to comments and questions on there as quickly as I can. If you want more, there are many more resources on the podcast and my blog. Go to my website, davidpendergrass.com, and you can see a full list of the podcast, and my blog is available for free. Are you active in a church right now? I'd be happy to come out to your church and do all kinds of classes and workshops there. Check out davidpendergrass.com, davidpendergrass.com for more information. And may God in His great grace give you even just a glimpse of His kingdom this week. See you next time.